Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Africa 24 for this other edition of the interview. We are joined by a man whose voice resonates both in Cameroon's boardrooms and in royal courts, Senator Nfon Ekoko Mukete IV. As Vice President of the Cameroon Chambers of Commerce and respected traditional ruler, he stands at the intersection of business, tradition, and national development. Ladies and gentlemen, together we'll explore key issues shaping Cameroon's future, from the business climate and the investment prospects to the role of traditional authorities in building peace and prosperity. His Majesty, welcome on Africa 24.
Thank you very much, Nana.
In your role as Vice President of the CCIMA, how would you describe the current business climate in Cameroon, especially for local entrepreneurs and foreign investors?
One word or two words would be Cameroon is the best kept secret. A lot of people have things to say, sometimes negative things. Others who actually engage in a productive way do realize that this country does offer incredible opportunity to investors. And it is one thing we would like to put forward our best foot for people to come and see for themselves the diversity and the potential of this economy, not just for Cameroon, but essentially for the sub-region.
Your Majesty, over the years, we have seen a lot of investors actually complain about constraints imposed by the government on their measures and how to invest in the country. So how has the government actually been able to reboot or eradicate these barriers?
Well, we need to put things in context, in the sense that the world faced COVID-19, massive disruption, and everybody faced, felt the effect, every government and so on, and every country. Cameroon is no exception, and we obviously have to look at our rebirth, in a sense, from that context, in the sense that most of the plans that the government had, the president had certain things put together in his agenda in terms of systematically addressing certain areas of the economy and so on. A lot of things had to be change and in order of the reality of COVID and so on, and that sort of wrong foot a lot of governments, not just Cameroon. And in that context, we've seen how the economy has basically revamped, and it also showed at the time our tenacity, the fact that we could weather the storm a lot more better than a lot of other economies, and a lot more than people expected. And you could see that for those who actually engage, they've seen Cameroon as an area where the potential growth is there. It could be a lot better, of course, but it's not the worst. I know you would ask, doing business and all the other indices and so on, but the reality is that for those who play in the economy, there's a lot to be desired, but nevertheless, it is a place they wouldn't want to walk away from, because the potential is huge. And yes, they do have return for their investment here.
The government projects an economic growth rate of 4.6% in 2025, driven largely by agriculture, infrastructure, and energy, of course. Which specific sectors do you think investors should prioritize, and why?
I think agriculture first, in the sense that we could do a lot of value added. There could be processing. We have our soils are very fertile. We do have, the capacity to grow a lot of different crops, high-value crops, and so on and so forth. And, the weather is there in our favor. The people are hardworking, and there's a lot that has not been exploited, a lot of arable land that has not been exploited. And I think there is room now to move from essentially subsistence and very inefficient agriculture to efficient commercial agriculture, and also mixing quite a bit of mechanized farming, without getting too much into chemicals and so on. But if we can stay, keep track of nature, stay close to nature, but at the same time use, non-chemicals and mechanical advantage to commercialize our agriculture, it really would take us to the next level. And I think investors should seriously look at agro-processing and agriculture in that sense, industrial agriculture, commercial agriculture. Secondly, of course, people always say, well, we have a mining potential, what has happened to it, and so on and so forth. But recently, you've seen the barrage of mines setting up, the iron ore in the Caribbean area. You've seen yesterday the Prime Minister was in Garua for the Mini Matap project, Camalco, which I happen to actually be a director of that. But in a sense, you can see that the mining potential is being turned into reality at incredible pace. And we are entering the mining landscape, not just as small players. We're entering it as actual leaders. Very soon, Cameroon would be one of the leading, iron ore producing countries in terms of bauxite. What Minimatap, what's happening there. We have one of the best quality bauxite in the world, and very high grade, about 200 million tons of very high grade bauxite, and the low grade ones can be, of course, processed into alumina locally. But for investors, the mining sector is one which needs to be looked at. There's also coal, but I can go on the list. We obviously don't have time to go into that, but clearly it's so untapped. You just like in life, you build your house where you think the town is going to expand to. If you don't have the money, you look at the perspective and the future. And really coming to this economy, I think the key investors should be looking at where things are going to, and I think mining is key.
You clearly mentioned that agriculture should be top priority in the economic reform sector. Yes. But during the 2025 New Year's speech given by President Paul Biya, he clearly mentioned that some projects are going to be implemented to actually boost the agricultural sector. So far, what has concretely been done?
Well, you could see there's the Plan Central, which is basically the push for having commercial agriculture, especially the Adamawa Plains, and be able to use machinery, combined harvesters, and so on, to get our productivity high. One of the things we're suffering from is low productivity, and I think the president obviously wants us to move from the kind of subsistence agriculture thinking to go into real commercial agriculture, which will not only feed the people, but to ensure food security for the sub-region, and of course, why not the world? And I think one of the things you would notice that he said President Paul Biya is very key on, he doesn't just look at Cameroon, but he's very concerned also about the neighbors, because it's not just you being okay. If your neighbors are not okay, then you won't get the stability you need. So those policies are really kind of, not just for Cameroon, but they're sub-regional for the CCIMA region.
Your Majesty, thank you for being so insightful during this first part of the interview.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being with us, ladies and gentlemen, for this first part of the interview. Stay with us as we will be right back. Welcome back to the second part of this special interview with Nfon Ekoko Mukete IV. Your Majesty, thank you for staying with us.
Thank you.
Traditional rulers manage vast communities and cultural assets. How can these influence be harnessed for the local economic development?
Yes, the traditional rulers are the custodians. When you talk, custodians of what sometimes people ask, culture. And what is culture? Yeah, it's one of the things, we've got to reflect about. Essentially, culture, your way of doing things, you want it to be so admirable that other people actually copy it. That's the whole idea. Why culture, it should be something that is aspiring. People want to do it. And traditional rulers in our context in Cameroon, and I would like to say also in Africa, the essence is, the perception is that they're just engaged in witchcraft and mystery and that, mystics. And then if you look at it in the context of the world, people then ask the question, if you're so powerful, why then are you considered, the perception is that you're the poorest in the world? You're not admired. Your way of life is not admirable. Why? Because in any place in the world, anywhere, if your way of doing things was attractive, then other people want to do it like you do it. But the essence is that, the traditional rulers in Africa, have to come out to look at, if I look at our ancestral background and some of the things, our ancestors were involved in, and all that gets seen is a negativity, and in a sense there's been a perpetration of that negativity But recently you're seeing more and more young people, more modern educated people taking hold of traditional thrones and trying to modernize cultural rule. Not just myself, but I have quite a few friends who recently have become chiefs and so on. And they run companies, they're parliamentarians, senators, they're engineers, doctors, lawyers, and so on and so forth. And in that context, they are able to take back to their areas a better form of organizing their villages their tribal rule. That's what we want to see. I have done that, more and more of that in my area, in Kumba and the Bafo tribe. And I happen, of course, I make no qualms about it, that yes, what is the basis of my culture and the way I say it? I don't go for ancestral worship. I honor my ancestors, but I don't worship my ancestors. I stand very clearly for Jesus Christ. That's who I am. And in a sense, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And I've seen I believe, and my people have seen that taking them to that direction has brought prosperity to the land, has brought peace. You go to Kumba, things are calmer. You could feel it. You could feel the life and that's what we are hoping, that the usage of traditional rulers in their area would give access. The government would see that traditional rulers are closer to their people. And through the traditional rulers, you could see better distribution of income, better access to the hinterlands and so on, stemming rural-urban migration and so on and so forth. But really, the traditional rule should not be overlooked. It's extremely important for not just Cameroon, but for Africa's future. Because essentially, if your culture becomes admirable, it becomes organized, then other people want to do things the way you do things.
Your Majesty, you speak so well of peace building, and in Kumba specifically, but the conflict in the Anglophone region has displaced already 700,000 people and disrupted economic activities. As a traditional leader from the region, what community-driven peace building efforts do you believe and can complement government action so far?
It's a tragedy that the Anglophones, NOSO, as Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon, have been found in this sad reality of an armed conflict. What has it brought to the area? Basically, destruction. The area, the zones have gone back maybe 50 years. Young people have missed out on education. And most importantly, mindset. We need a mindset change. If young people don't change and think positively and do things differently, then they'll be held back. What do we have? The future of this nation rests upon the youth. They are the future. And of course, no matter what we do today or the ruling class do, it's to prepare the grounds for the next generation. And if they have the wrong mindset, and they get carried away with social media and lies and fake news here and there, then of course, then the future looks grim. But I believe, and I've seen that there's a lot of ingenuity, lots of young people who are very creative, but most importantly, what are people telling you internationally about yourself, and what do you think about yourself? We have faced this conflict. It is tough, but they say normally when bad things happen, there is a gleam of hope. There is a silver lining to the clouds. And that silver lining, I believe that the Northwest and Southwest region, it gives the opportunity for people to rebuild. And you could see, even here in Douala and Yaoundé, in the Francophone areas, you would see a lot of English influence. If you enter a taxi today, there's a good chance that it's perhaps an Anglophone driving the taxi and so on, hairdressers and so on. So what was meant to split the country actually has integrated the country. In reality, I don't care what people talk in writing and so on, but the reality is that there's a lot more effort in people speaking English and French. There's much more effort in coming together. There's much more English-speaking schools are sprout all over the Francophone areas. And that actually, that's the paradox. The armed conflict, it has tested the unity of our people. It has tested us as a people. And after the test, we have come out as one, despite the sad occurrence. And I just think after that sad occurrence, we can build on this and say this should never happen again. Without peace, you cannot develop. That's
Your Majesty, I actually agree with you in the sense that the Anglophone crisis may have sparked unity in one way or the other.
Yes.
But what of these Anglophones that can no longer go back home and call their houses home? Because still today, most of them still live in fear and they may not be able to go back to their houses. And meanwhile, since 2018, when President Paul Biya was re-elected as President of the Republic, what measures has he put in place to this actually eradicate and bring back peace in those regions? Because still, most of them still live in fear. And with the upcoming elections, most of them still stay back at home and are shut down and are not able to go out there and vote.
Well, but also, you know, Nana, you have to put things in context. The view from the driver's seat is always different. And the reality is that, look, don't get carried away. Look at the facts. What are the facts? There's the DDR. The person has dropped down your weapons, you're forgiven, come in and you'll be rehabilitated in society. It's been drummed over and over. If you don't take the arm that has been offered to you of peace, come back home, you're forgiven, come back home. You don't take it. What do you want other people to do? And the offer is still on the table, take it. The reality is that in the way this conflict could have been handled, the government could have been a lot more harsher, but a lot of restraint has been shown to make sure children are not affected, babies are not, women are not. There's a lot of restraint and trying to bring back peace. We're one. There's no point, you know, fighting and coming up with hate speech. You can hear how government goes over and over talking against hate speech, talks about living together. This is not just speech in the air, but ultimately the people must accept it. You must want to accept it. Now, there are areas, say in the southwest, which has become a lot more safer, but you must have the courage to go back home. You know, and then there's the other side of it. If you're a hairdresser, you left Bamenda or you left Boya, you ran up to Biema, so you're staying in Yaoundé, and you're working somewhere there, then you're loved, your hands are good. The women come in and say, where's that Anglophone girl? If she's not there, I'll come back tomorrow to do my hair. Then you start prospering. Then, or you open a school, it's doing well. At the end of it all, you'll be doing so well, internally displaced, that you don't want to come back. It's how history is. When the Jewish people left Israel, they went into Babylon, many in Babylon never came back because they prospered in Babylon. And it goes without saying, when there's internal displacement, there are a lot of people who will never go back because they have prospered. So it's not a sign that President Biya has not done the necessary things or created the enabling environment for people to return home. No. On the contrary, a lot of people have prospered. They left, ran away. If it was so bad, why would they not just run into Nigeria and all the neighboring countries? And why would you be running back into the Francophone areas where you know, as a haven of peace? But that haven of peace has proven that it is a true haven of peace because you did so well that you don't want to go back. That is the reality. And I want us to be looking, when we make these statements, look at the context, look at the reality, and don't just get emotional without holding on to the facts. The facts are that a lot of people move all over Cameroon and they live in peace. It's a true vivance in Cameroon, and that's the reality.
Your Majesty, right now the people in the Northwest and Southwest region are still experiencing a shutdown, popularly known as Ghost Town. So how do you think votes are going to be transparent and implemented in those areas?
Precisely, precisely. We have in those areas people who claim that, they are fighting for the people. You're fighting for the people and you don't want children to go to school. Are you really fighting for the people? You want to fight for the people. There's plurality, there's democracy. Let the people go and vote to make their choice. You say, there's a ghost town, I will not let you vote. What do you want? What do you really want? You don't want school, you don't want voting, you don't want change through the ballot box, and all of that you don't want. And who are you going to blame about that? This is a question you have to ask, and I'm saying this. The Anglophones should ask themselves a serious question. If such characters were meant to run the government and run the people, what are you going to have? You don't have to go too far to see the reality. You are living it today. You are living it today. The government comes together all the time to help people risk their lives, to make sure that there's peace, there's safety, women, young people, children can go to school and live peacefully. The soldiers are there trying to create the peace.
So, Your Majesty, during this period of vote, are the soldiers going to pull out the population from their houses to take them to the ballot boxes, or how are they going to go about it?
Well, you know, it's freedom. If they did that, you, the media, would say, look, soldiers, go ahead, they're forcing you to go and vote for the CPDM and so on. No, whatever you do, someone was going to turn around and say, oh.
So does it mean votes in these regions are going to be neutral?
No, well, we pray.
Invalid?
We pray that people who really believe that they want peace in this country would go and exercise their rights to vote and to give their opinion. That is the desire. And I believe that in certain areas, most of the electcam who's in charge of the elections is making sure that where areas are very insecure, they will bring the polling boxes closer to more secure areas so people would have the confidence and feel secured enough to go and vote. This is not the first election that has happened since this conflict happened. 2018, the elections happened, the conflict was rife. It was much more worse than it was, but people still vote. The elections took place, and credibly, it did take place. So I see no reason why this time around, when it's more peaceful, we will not be able to have a much more representative electoral process. I'm confident it will happen.
On the political front, Your Majesty, you were recently appointed member of the CPDM National Presidential Election Campaign Committee and supervisor of President Paul Biya's campaign in the Southwest region. What do you think his candidacy offers in terms of reforms in 2025?
Of course, I make no qualms about it. I'm you know, a supporter of President Paul Biya. I believe that, contrary to what people might want to say, so maybe sometimes in international communities, they are friends, very important friends, who would say to me, oh, but he's an old man. Why? Well, but old age is not a disease. The reality is that age is wisdom. And we should not allow ourselves to have a very Western concept, well, to say that, well, the old man is, you know, he should go away. So, no. I believe that President Biya is an asset to this nation. It's just me talking. You don't have to accept it, but you have to focus on the facts. Do you want peace or don't you want peace? Do you want continuity or don't you want continuity? Do you want sustainable development or don't you? At a certain age, the wise man of Africa, the wise man, he is not looking for anything else. He wants the best for his people. So it's not perfect, but he truly wants the best for his people. And it gives him the ability, even in any company, people go in, the board will be expecting the CEO of the company to know his succession plan. The CEO can disclose it to the board privately. He can make it known in the company, his succession plan, and so on. Or he might decide to keep it quiet and secret and confidential to allow everybody to develop with the best of their ability. And at the end, he would make the right decision at the time to make sure that the succession is nobody lives forever. He's not Methuselah. Nobody stays forever. But the reality is that it will be reckless to be pushing for a change at this very time. Change, a lot of times, is good, but change can also be bad. But what is most important in change is the timing of change. And I'm telling you now, from the bottom of my heart, the change that people are screaming from the bottom in a rather reckless fashion, the timing, look at the timing. Mr. Biya is our best option, taking us to the next stage and to secure things in a way where this nation can stay in peace, it can be in the road of prosperity in a coherent fashion. Trust him, just trust him. And I believe that the man at his age is our best hope. And I believe that he's a blessing to this country. God decides how you say, God decides your health, God decides your nature, whatever it should be there. If it's this way, he's been given the health, the capacity to still run this country at that age. Why not? My father, personally, was 101, 102. But I can tell that he was reading, you know, without his glasses. He was coherent in his thinking, and a lot of times, you know. So don't take age to be a disease. And I believe there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we need to recognize that the country today, it's like it's a chantier. He promised that it will be, you know, a time of lots of work going on. You can say it, but the reality is that we have Boko Haram, and coming, an external threat coming in from the north. He has to address to defend the territorial integrity of this nation. It's not easy. It takes right temperament. It takes the right kind of wisdom and patience to manage a very complex situation. He has an internal conflict, northwest, southwest. He has to manage it in such a way that there's caution, there is calling people to come back to that, young people come back to, there's all of this going on. At the same time, he must keep the growth, the economic growth of this country going. How do you balance all of this? It is not easy. Like I say before, the view from the driver's seat is different.
Thank you, Your Majesty, for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much. It's an honor. Thank you.
As Cameroon prepares for a critical election year, voices like that of Nfon Ekoko Mukete reminds us of the importance of leadership and blends wisdom, cultural heritage, and the bold economic visions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for honoring your invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, the conversation continues in communities, ballot boxes, boardrooms, and of course, across the nations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us on Africa 24.